Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy have found each other again, and they walk hand in hand and very much in love through the streets of New York. Peter teases asking a certain question, the question, and the two of them kiss. We're reading Every Spider-Man Ever, and this is the Amazing Spider-Man issue 99, A Day in the Life of. But before Peter Parker can ask Gwen Stacy to marry him, he needs to make sure he can support a wife, and so he needs a job. He can't go back to Norman in case Norman turns goblin again, so he goes to the Bugle, where they need a photographer to cover a riot at the prison. But Peter won't go unless he gets a pay rise and gets to be a staff photographer. And for all that Jonah blusters and moans, he needs a photographer, and so Peter Parker gets both a raise and a part-time job. He's giddy. Since there's a riot at the prison, the police aren't letting people inside. But that's no issue for Spider-Man, who's able to leap over the walls and interrogate one of the rioters. While hanging upside down, the prisoner explains that they're rioting to be treated like human beings, that a man named Turpo has promised to get them their rights. And so Spider-Man crawls through the ventilation shafts to find out for himself, the first person to ever break into a prison. In the warden's office, Spidey finds Turpo, who has a gun to the warden's head. It turns out that he had no intention to help out his fellow prisoners. He just wanted to use the riot as a means to escape. And when those fellow prisoners learn of his betrayal, he turns his gun on them, not caring who he has to kill to get out. Luckily, Spider-Man hears the whole plan, smashes through the window and handily defeats everyone in the room. Then he steps out into the corridor and explains to the rioters that it was all a lie, that Turpo was using them for selfish reasons. And when another prisoner backs Spider-Man up and says that the warden agrees with their issues, and when the warden promises amnesty for every rioter, the rioting stops. He's got a job and photos to earn money, and the whole prison riot turned out smoothly, and so things are looking up for Spider-Man when a man waves him down from a window. It's Johnny Carson, or someone that looks very close to him, who wants Spider-Man to be on his show. He's just heard about the prison riot and thinks that an appearance would be great PR. But also he won't pay any money, until Spidey refuses to do the show for free, and then Johnny Carson agrees to pay the usual rate. Which is useful because after delivering his photos to the Bugle, Peter learns that being salaried means that payday is on Friday and not immediately. So at least he'll have the Johnny Carson money. And so Spider-Man appears on late night TV, swinging into Carson's show to climb walls, hang upside down and lift Carson up with some webs. But before he shows off more, he uses his time on television to talk about prisons and their understaffed, overcrowded conditions. He talks about issues with the justice system that lead to people imprisoned for too long due to backlogs and lead to first-time offenders sharing cells with hardened criminals. You know, usual apolitical stuff before comics started getting all political on us. And as he talks, the police realise that he's still wanted for crimes, and they run onto the stage and Spidey has to swing away before he can be paid. And so Peter has no Bugle money and no Carson money to take Gwen out on a date that she deserves, and so he's feeling down when he rings her buzzer. But she didn't need anything fancy. In fact, she had no intention of going out. She'd spent all afternoon cooking for them, and all she needs is Peter Parker, all to herself. Thanks for watching and joining me on this journey to read every Spider-Man comic ever. Next week, Peter Parker gives up being Spider-Man forever, but until that issue, here's a fun fact about this one. The story of the prison riots were pulled straight from the headlines of the Times, from 1970 riots in the Manhattan Central Detention Complex and a 1971 riot in Attica Prison, both over prison conditions.